Oh, that's on?
Oh, is the monitor not on?
Those are on, but this is not.
That one's not.
Yeah, that one doesn't go on.
Oh, it doesn't?
It used to.
Okay,
But that was bugging people.
we're fine, thank you. Good evening, welcome to the Board Policy Committee meeting for November 21st. Are we properly posted, Lynn?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Now would be the opportunity for any, excuse me, citizen that wishes to address us to do so. I do not see any here, so we will go past that. Couple action items tonight and some reviews of some previous policy discussion. First is approval of the policy minutes for our last meeting held in October. Do I have, moved by Barbara for approval,
Second.
seconded by Amanda. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we will say, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you, unanimous. Okay. We have an action item on policy 2370 being deleted and replaced by a new policy 8146, notification of educational options. And this one did generate some, what's this all about with us? So I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Yeah, so going to the policy that is being deleted, educational options, that was a policy that fit in the program section of the manual, which talked about the offerings that we have for students. It talked about the type of program that it was. It got more into kind of the curriculum pieces, the teaching and learning pieces that were associated with it. The law changed, and through those law changes, it turned more into a policy that talked about what we had to do to notify people, which is more operations in nature. So if you were to look at the revised policy or the new policy, policy number 8146, you lose all of the program structure language, and you see that it just says on an annual basis, a list of educational options available to children who reside in the district, including the public school, will be made public. So what was an educational options program policy that talked about what that design needed to look like, it just turned into a notice.
And the notice is there in our district.
And we do provide the proper notices, so our practice is in line. It's just a matter of getting this policy in the correct section of the book.
So any questions on this? It is pretty straightforward once you know about the history there.
We did spend some time corresponding with Richard Zimman from Neola, just to make sure we had the understanding as to why this happened, and he gave us a thorough explanation.
That's what Lynn handed out on the
Yep.
The background.
pretty pink. Joe?
Yeah, there's a number of items we have to notice. And are there like certain times, is it just in the beginning of the year? Or are there like updates throughout the year? Or how does that schedule kind of work?
And I would just, as you mentioned, asked that question, I would compliment Lynn Cummings. She went through all of the statutory requirements from the DPI and put a schedule of public notices, where those notices must go from a handbook standpoint to a type 1, a class 1 posting in the newspaper to what goes on our website. So we do have to do that prior to the start of the school year. Sometimes if it's a fiscal type thing, it has to be by the beginning of the fiscal year. So it could vary a little bit, but generally it's something that happens before the beginning of the school year.
Okay, and this is, essentially program related.
Correct.
So this would be in the beginning of the year too?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
But we do have a complete up-to-date public notice document that all of our departments have, which has been a very good resource for us now, and I thank
you
Lynn
for
for
that,
putting
yeah.
that together.
And thank you for this, Lynn. Okay, yes, Joe?
I move approval as presented.
Okay, and seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Barbara. Any further questions on this? All in favor of the policy change of deletion of 2370 and replacement by 8146, please say aye.
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 Opposed? 5-0, Lynn. And this will come to the full board on our December board meeting for the first reading. Okay. No information items at the previous board meeting in about last week, 2 weeks ago. We presented the board with a first reading of 21 different policies. And two led us to some discussion, number 0166 and number 2411. So let me take those two first, and then we can come back and see if there's any further discussion. So
Say 2261?
166
Yes.
and 2411.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 166. One of the board members suggested that as we got to the end of the list of the agenda items, he indicated he would like to see a little bit more under other business, such as that we can adjourn to executive session when we're getting to other business. So we thought maybe we could just quite simply say as an add-on to other as needed, example, adjourning to executive session, because that's the most typical one we run into there. We could add that as a change. And the other stuff that was in here that was added was the distribution of supporting materials, which was in the previous reading of this. So any thoughts on that? Make sense? Yeah, it makes sense to me. Okay. Then let's hold that one aside for a minute and find number 2411, just further down the list on counseling. Oops. Mine in all the wrong order. That's what happens when you start stirring them up at home.
It's number 16 in your packet.
No, it's only if I have it in the right order. Okay.
I know what you mean,
I've
Bill.
got it. Joe and Lynn and I sat down, talked about this one a little bit. It was also a question from one of the board members about, as he viewed it, leaving the school school counselors out of the idea of career planning. And I think as we read through it, we felt there was the whole policy has a slightly different concept to it, in that it is now the combination of school counseling and academic career planning not to be separated, but to be combined. And actually, first line could be changed maybe to accomplish that. The Board of Education requires that a planned program of school counseling and academic and career planning be an integral part, et cetera, et cetera. And the A, B through F, that'll change. I guess that would be another thing we should do if we agree to it. That are the things that the board is requiring. Is that the right way you put it, Joe? I thought it was pretty well put that way. So those are the things the board is requiring the district to do. Then down near the bottom of the page, these are the things that the superintendent, and we understand that means under his direction, will implement these programs which carried out the purposes and blah, blah, blah. This is what you get done. And I think Lynn, did we just add the these there, these there also?
Correct, we added these to refer to school counseling and academic and career planning.
Then down near the bottom, these programs. That was another change we just
Correct.
made. Now, I really wasn't able to ascertain if the board member was thinking of something deeper than that or not. I will see what you guys think about that. Joe, you have something?
I guess I'd just point out as a matter of just the sequence of this. I think when we talked about this, the original frame was that this was the school counseling policy. And so it's important to note that the first change in this policy is the actual title of the policy, from school counseling to school counseling and academic and career planning. So the breadth of this policy gets wider than just the school counselor. It talks about anybody who's involved in the academic and career planning.
See that?
For the members of the committee who are also on the teaching and learning committee, who have had the ACP updates for the last two and a half school years, we have talked about how academic and career planning is something that we're focusing on grades 6-12. All of our staff are involved in the academic and career planning. The steering committee for academic and career planning included our CTE teachers, our counselors, our principals, central office administrators. So there was a tremendous amount of involvement in it. And if you think about the policy, the name change and what it now covers, the policy in itself now makes more sense. The paragraph that you see in the middle about academic and career planning, that is the added language, and that comes from the DPI definition, what their expectation is in and around ACP for all students grades 6 through 12 in the state of Wisconsin. So that's sequence-wise, that adds, I think, to the understanding of what this policy now covers.
And when I read that same paragraph, and you get out to near the end of the first line, it says staff assistants. It doesn't say teachers, it doesn't say school counselors, it's staff. Whoever needs to be involved in delivering these items.
And the only addition I'd make is, in order to accomplish this, if this were something that solely sat as a responsibility of the school counselor, you'd either have to hire an army of counselors, or it'd be virtually impossible to implement, because it is something that all of our staff have their hands in. I mean, if you think about our secondary level in Waukesha, there's 7,000 plus students there, and all 7,000 students are participating in this academic and career planning. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about the breadth of the type of people who are being involved with this type of guidance. And so, because at first, one of the things that was troubling me a little bit was academic and career planning services, including individualized support. Individualized was the word that was
Of course.
caught my attention, and I'm thinking, well, is it really individualized? Is it truly custom developed for that child? And as I think about all the people that help and assist in the process, well, it has to be customized. It is individualized, and broadening it to everybody, all the people assisting the student, that makes sense to me. But that word was bugging me a little bit when I first read this, but when I really think about it, it is individualized quite a bit.
Any other questions on this? I think too that what they're trying to get across in here is that we include in the instruction of all the rest of the curriculum, the concept of careers and where you're going to go with your career, and to the point where we have students thinking about when they're taking a particular course, how does this affect the future for that individual? So it's not just a counselor's job, and probably it's not just a teacher's job, it's the staff's job. So,
Yeah, I think we've come a long way. I remember taking the vote to, this is a number of years ago, I can't remember, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, to reduce our counselors.
Yes.
And that really did cause a lot of adjustment, changing of how we deliver services, who was serving which schools, the number of students per counselor. And actually both my daughters were going through high school when there were some changes going on. And it really, for lack of a better word, I think we downgraded our services. And so looking at that kind of as, I'm just going to call it a low point, I think things have been much improved.
Yes.
Quite a bit, not only what we're doing, but even from a statute perspective. I don't always speak highly on statutes in some of the changes, but I think that this has become, our community has become much more cognizant of helping our students move through these kinds of topics and issues and doing a much better job of it. So I'm feeling very comfortable. I know we're talking policy, but I also wanted to talk about how we've been implementing things in our schools, and I know we've greatly improved over the last few years.
Yes, Barbara?
Joe, does every school have at least a counselor halftime? Elementary, I'm talking about, not high school.
No, not a counselor.
Not a
At the
counselor.
elementary level, we have 2 counselors covering our 14 locations. However, in each of our elementary schools, we have a full-time psychologist
Yeah.
or a full-time social worker
Okay.
working to help address the social and emotional that the counselor used to do.
Yes, yes.
So we do have, our counselors have our elementary district split in half. Their focus on the safety and on the peer curriculum. Classroom teachers still deliver a component of the curriculum, but our psychs and our social workers are there to really work with our kids
For support.
more in depth for the support. And that
Okay.
has been,
Yeah.
an addition that we've been able to make over the last couple of years. And we are now 100% staffed at those locations with a full-time person.
So what you're saying is that every day in every elementary school, there's either a social worker or a psychologist, but
Unless-
one of the two every day,
Unless they're sick.
unless
yes.
they're sick. That's great. That is great. Okay.
Okay. We have to vote on the, go ahead, Joe.
We do have one other, and this came in, we were waiting for some guidance from council. And we do have a couple copies of this, and I'm just gonna ask perhaps if you could share it, just given, this literally came in at the last minute under definitions that we wanted to make sure we bring. It was a policy, the family and medical leave of absence policy was something to be considered tonight. So if you look at 1630.01, 3430.01, and 4430.01, at 5 o'clock this afternoon, we did get an addition to this policy, and I apologize for not having enough copies. You get to go into groups and take a look at it for the first time, and this really just affects definitions. So you will see stapled in there a white piece of paper. If you flip the page, there you go. You'll just see a white strip of paper in there, and it says new verbiage, and it expands the definition of spouse. This is something that does come under Wisconsin Medical Leave Act, which covers domestic partner as defined by statute 1310, parentheses AR, for leaves governed by the Wisconsin. And so this is something that is, under Wisconsin law, it is a definition that we should have in our policy. So this comes as recommendation from our council, and I apologize for the timing of this, but it's when we got it.
So this wording, new verbiage,
Would go,
into the definitions?
it would go into the definition, so you can see right behind it, if you lift that piece of paper up,
Oh.
you will see spouse.
Oh, okay.
The proposed language is, the proposed change is to strike what is on the yellow sheet of paper,
Yes.
and then add what is in the white piece of paper to that section.
So that would add, the new verbiage on the white piece of paper would go into the definitions?
Definitions of who is covered
Go in, right here?
into this policy,
Okay.
correct?
But would we, we don't need to repeat it in the 0-100 definitions? Okay, right, just here.
Just there.
And then the other one,
It would go under, in all three sections.
all of the family leave sections.
Correct. So,
Okay, so that would be another, so now we're talking about 3 policies that we've changed since the first reading. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4.
3 for FMLA.
Oh,
and
there's
the
3 of
two
them in
That we
FM.
previously just discussed.
so there'd be
1630, 3430, and 4430, plus the 2 we just discussed.
correct.
So those we need to vote on tonight to take in to the next board meeting.
Correct.
The other ones can rest,
Right.
unless somebody wants to change one tonight, which I'll ask next. Okay, does that all make sense to you guys? Good. Help me with it.
And the changes you see in front of you are from Wisconsin Act 59 that was passed this year.
Okay, this year,
That's the state law.
Okay.
So these are state law changes.
okay, so, now, does anybody have any issues with that particular one, the verbiage change? It makes sense. Okay, so let me ask this question. We have, of the 21 policies, we've said, 5 of them we're gonna vote on because we're making a modification to them. Other ones, and I'm not gonna try and remember all of them, definitions, bylaws, compensation, special meetings, non-discrimination, district-sponsored, interscholastic athletics grading, parent participation, suspension and expulsion, and the ones that deal with the resident students, records, student records, those are all basically the same wording. Confidentiality, automated AEDs, and religious and patriotic ceremonies and observations. Those we had a first reading on 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, and there was no other objections to those. So does anybody want any changes to those?
Let me just quickly.
Amanda, please.
Changed, more so a question, and I feel like
Please.
it maybe, this would be regarding, policy 2430, the, district-sponsored clubs and activities. Right here in front of you. So my question, what's an example of the district-sponsored clubs and activities?
Oh, hold on, I'm just looking for the district-sponsored club. Student council.
Okay.
Student council would be an activity. There are a number of clubs that happen, that would be part of our Appendix C, Schedule C contracts, where if there's enough student interest at a high school.
Chess
follow the
club,
process.
math
Chess club, math club,
Anything?
the robotics, which come to the board, those are district-sponsored clubs.
What about sports aren't?
That's an
Sports-
activity.
Sports
That's
are
it.
different, yeah, that's activity.
Okay,
But to be a sport, it's a WIA
yeah,
sanctioned.
right.
All right, I just wanted.
Just wanted to know that?
Clarification, yeah. Yep, that's all, because in the policy, it talks about being related to curriculum and things like that, and I know some clubs from outside groups, it'll match it, but doesn't necessarily mean, so I just wanted specifics, examples of what that, club or activity would be, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will not be modifying any of the other 16, but we will want to go back and get a vote on the, Lynn, are we able to take a vote on all 5 of those? Want us to do it separately, what do you,
I think it would be better if it was separate, just in case anybody
okay,
has any.
let's do
concerns.
that. Joe, did you have any?
Yeah, I was going to move for approval to the modifications policy 0166.
0166, the one
Agenda for, or as presented.
on the agenda, okay. Is there a second by somebody?
I'll second it.
Greg got that one. Any further question on 0166 where we added turning to executive session? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that one passes. And then we would have 1630, 3430, and 4430. Right?
We also
Right,
have the school.
following those.
Okay,
Those can we can combine those?
sure.
Okay. Would seek a motion for approval of 1630.01, 3430.01, 4430.01, all with the same terminology being inserted.
So moved.
Moved by Barbara. Seconded by Greg. Further discussion on those 3 policies where we added the verbiage on spouse? Yes, please.
Just a question. I know this came from state statute, correct?
Yep.
So in the current document, it states a qualified domestic partner. So in this new one, there doesn't need to be registered, nothing needs to be registered with their county?
The statutory reference, the 1310 AR that you see on the white sheet of paper, has all of the Wisconsin expectation for domestic partnership. So it's more clearly spelled out in statute, and all of the language isn't written.
And then just, this line just refers over to that section? Okay,
And I think that it is more efficient for us as a district to just reference the statute there, because as the state legislature would make changes, the statute will still be the statute.
got it. And then it's directly from them?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ann.
Oh, good question. Okay, we will vote on these three policies. All in favor, please, yeah, we have a motion on this one, yeah.
Yep.
All in favor, all in favor of accepting 1630.01, 3430.01, and 4430.01, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Those will also go to the board as a second reading as adjusted in the December board meeting. Which brings us to 2411. Which is the one we dealt with on school counseling and academic. Oh, I'm in the wrong one, I'm sorry.
That's correct, 2411.
No, I grabbed the wrong one here. Here we go. School counseling and academic and career planning. We added the words academic and career planning up near the top. And they'll implement these programs. Identify them as one. Any further changes to this? I will seek a motion for accepting and approving 2411 policy.
I'll move to approve the revisions to policy 2411 as presented.
Greg, seconded by Amanda.
Second.
Any further questions on those? Not, please say, in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Those will go to the second reading as adjusted. Are we doing that right, Lynn?
You got it.
Keeping it in order, huh? Okay. All right. I know for 21 that policies, we did that pretty quickly anyway. So we would have at this point, other business. Anybody have any ideas or suggestions for something at a subsequent meeting? Not that we are running out of work, but I'm sure, Joe, I know you got something coming in, right?
Yeah, I'll be in the next month and a half, meeting with Darren, Chris, Jody, Todd, Steve Schloman, and any other appropriate administration and staff to go through the remaining updates from Neola from this packet. So during the December policy meeting, January policy meeting, you will see the policies that we really need to focus on making sure that they're tight for Waukesha. The policies that we entertained tonight were more or less legal updates that affected how we have to operate. The next series of policies are going to be recommendations that need a lot of treatment by administration and then the committee.
So these are internally suggested modifications, will be internally suggested modifications.
Correct, so part of the Neola packet, these are the ones that would be, that where Neola would make the suggestion to make the change, but you don't have to make the change. So we're gonna go through that, and if we do need to make a change, those policies will come to you. If we don't need to make it, you won't see what the recommended changes are, but they do give us some that are just suggestions, and we take a look at them a little more closely.
At the same time, does that group of people you just talked about, they encounter something in a policy, separate from Neola, if they encounter something that they think we need to change or correct or delete or add?
They come to me, then I come to committee. So you will get all of those recommendations. I would say that those types of changes are very few, given how current things are in the book.
Current, we've made them, yeah. Any other ideas for future meetings? Okay, then with that, we can stand adjourned. Thank you for coming, and everybody have a good Thanksgiving holiday.